So Elliott, tell me your story. How'd you get into due diligence?
I came in this business to be an OG and to guide people into successful wealth building through acquisition. We call it self-funded search now, but back when I started, it was just an idiot at Harvard that couldn't listen to people saying that anything under $2 million of EBITDA wasn't worth paying attention to. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth, so having a business throwing off $500,000 of SDE a year that was priced at $2 million sounded like plenty. But I was super early. So how the heck did I get into this? I'm a kid from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I actually had the same barber as the Fab Five. I remember hanging out with those guys on Saturdays. I came to Atlanta to go to school, undergrad, Morehouse College, Georgia Tech, engineering, got into strategy consulting, and a mentor of mine showed me the earning potential within private equity. And I said, wow, I want to get rich. So I went to Harvard Business School and I threw all of my eggs in the private equity basket. I came into business school with all of the guys coming out of the 2008, 2009 mortgage crisis. So there was probably 300 people at Harvard that were in line ahead of me to get these jobs. I called 250 people and I got one yes. So I went off to my private equity job, and private equity, for those who may not know, it's just the business of buying businesses. It's no more complicated than that. And fortunately, my first firm was a firm who was a family that was buying businesses in the same private equity format, but the members of the family got all the winnings. It's called a family office. And I really learned not just the business of buying businesses, but I learned how wealth creating it can be for everyday people who get into it. Now, this job was in my favorite city, and any Black people watching this or any folks that know anything about Boston will understand what I'm saying. It just wasn't a city for me. So I left, I came back to Atlanta, and when I did that, I had to create my own deal ecosystem. There were no firms there, and I knew I was making a different decision, but I also think that business isn't just about making money, it's about creating a better life. It's about happiness, and that'll be a theme through all of this. So I get to Atlanta, and I called all those 250 people at Harvard. So I called them back, and I was trying to figure out who could I hook up with, who could I partner with. I knew that if we were creating wealth together, somebody was willing for a young, scrappy dude to get in there and do most of the work. And I found one. So we started doing deals together. We were called independent sponsors before that was a popular term. Basically, deal guys without a fund. And then I did that for 3 years total. But the piece that people don't get, and I really want to double click on this because this is why I understand this better than everybody else. This is why I call myself an OG. I spent 3 years trying to buy a business, but I was poor. So how'd I pay my bills? I had a full-time job at Workday Software. So I'm going around the country carrying my 2 laptops in my bag because my lawyer told me that the one way that they're going to get you is if you start doing your other side business stuff on your work computer. So I got my pack on, heavy as heck, going through security with my boss. Why you got 2 computers? Oh man, I do this creative stuff on the side. It's just easier to do on that computer. It's a little bit faster than the one they have from the company. I'm lying. And you part-time searchers are lying to your bosses too, so you understand it. So I did that for 2.5 years. My mentor that I was working with effectively retired. We had done 3 deals, tow truck company, automotive parts business, and a clinical trials company. So I had participated in acquisitions, but I was young and the scrappy one, so my economics weren't all that great. So I still had to go to work. So I spun out and did a self-funded search. And most of the techniques that I teach in my master class are from things that I perfected after my private equity life, my independent sponsor life, and then my self-funded search life, where the name of the game is execution. You cannot bullshit around how many deals you're looking at, about being patient with making decisions. You have to go. So I lined up a great deal in Arkansas, a durable medical equipment business, kind of business that sells like CPAP and PPAP machines so you don't snore all night. Give your grandmother a wheelchair so she can get around the house better. And going through that deal, raising the capital, a mentor of an equity investor of mine torpedoed my deal. He was an incredibly selfish human, some of the worst type of people. He subsequently did 2 years in jail for fraud. So he just didn't go to jail for this one, but they got him on the next one. Just terrible people are terrible. So after that deal blew up, I was poor again. So I'm 8 years out of HBS. I put all my chips on the table, didn't work. So I'm driving Uber and Lyft in Atlanta, picking up people from the airport and trying to figure it out. And so in that timeline, I said, I have these unique skills that I know can create value. I've been pained and hurt and hit in my life on entrepreneurship and business acquisition, but I'm not ready to quit. I can't stomach a corporate life, and that'll be a different video on how I think about that. So with these skills, I said, what can I do? I heard the charlatans on the interwebs lying back in 2017. They had Roland Frazier saying you could easily buy a business with no money down, don't worry about it. Cody Sanchez saying, oh, go buy 10 laundromats and then $1 billion business. It's simple, no big deal. Look at this SBA thing. Silver Tsunami lying about being in the deal business because I saw Roland was a digital marketer. He still presents at Traffic and Conversion, one of the biggest digital marketing conferences in the world. And I was in New York during the time Cody says she was there. I never saw her there. And I saw these folks that were telling lies, but I saw real people who were about to bet personal guarantees on business assets that were running into burning houses because they needed to be far better prepared for the rigors of business acquisition. And frankly, moving from a W-2 to a driver's seat in the biggest investment you ever made when you don't have negotiation or deal experience is a big jump. So I started Guardian Due Diligence to help guard those people through that process and help people ensure success and not buying a lemon and turning it into failure. So after several years of doing Guardian, I become a marquee, if not one of the best QoE providers for deals under $5 million in enterprise value. We do deals larger, but in that under $5 million space, I don't think anybody competes with us truly on quality. Part of what pained me during those 6 or 7 years when I got started is I could only help somebody once they had a deal under letter of intent. But 80 to 90% of the folks that are in my audience will never get a deal under letter of intent. And unfortunately, too many people from these other programs, you know what programs I'm talking about, come into my funnel, don't know squat, paid somebody else to help them learn how to do the deal business. They did not learn. Nothing past the LOI do they understand. But I couldn't help them for 6 years, and that pained me. So I started my masterclass about 1.5 years ago because after working for free for 2.5 years while I had the workday job, I didn't mention the internships around private equity and search funds that I did during my Harvard years that I did for free. I know what it takes to learn this, and I know what I invested. I don't want other people to have to go through all that. There's a much simpler way to get deals done, but it's not the way that others try to put out classes and masterminds because there's no one-on-one time. The way that this gets done is through mentorship, apprenticeship, and that only works with a lot of one-on-one time and quick turnaround times on information. And so the program that I come to market with is one that actually works. 75% of the people who are getting through it are closing deals, many inside of 6 months. And so now I have the two pieces of the pie. I have a service to help people go from a W-2 to understanding how to do deals with the one-on-one support they need to execute and not get into trouble. And then I have a due diligence business so that once they get a deal signed up under letter of intent, they're not getting caught in situations with fraud, baloney, terrible deals. And so now I can help walk somebody through the full process. And I'm ecstatic about this opportunity. But many people who interact with me have heard parts of this on podcasts, parts of it here or there, but not the full story.
So tell me about the history of Search Fund as you've seen it since you got into the space in 2009. How has that evolved from then, when no one was talking about it, to now when it's all the rage?
I call myself an OG in search funds because my first search fund job was in 2009. This was a time when 15 people coming out of Harvard Business School and Stanford only would do funded search. And I just so happened to get a job at one in Atlanta and work for free before I went to Harvard Business School. And it was this super unique, weird thing on the side of business schools when most people were still going to Goldman Sachs or private equity, venture capital, or a big consulting company. But these 10, 15 people each year would go off and do search funds. And all it was a small business acquisition, so a miniature private equity thing. But the leader of the search fund was just an individual just like me or you or anybody else in business school. And so at that point, it was a concept that people got real excited about when they saw it, but they didn't know how to do it. There were only like 10, 20 investors out of Silicon Valley called the Search Fund Mafia that invested in this. And you really had to be at one or two business schools. Even if you were at Wharton, you really didn't get into this, which is super elite. How did it evolve? So when I got out of business school in 2011, it was still that nascent thing, but more people were hearing about it. So instead of like 10 or 15 in top 2 business schools, there were probably about 20 to 25 and expanded to the top 10 business schools in the nation. Still very nascent. And also people were saying that any deal under $2 million in EBITDA was a complete waste of time, too small to get done. Fast forward to about 2015, that's when you started seeing the Roland Frasers that predated Cody Sanchez coming with their charlatan ideas of, oh, it's easy to buy a business, nobody down. Just go tell the seller you want to continue their legacy and all you need is a 100% seller note.
And install a manager.
That's it. And you're the guy. Or just outsource it because somebody else will run your business for you for free and not steal from you. So I started seeing it going at that point, but I was working on my own deal stuff. I'll also tell you, a lot of you now know Live Oak Bank to be one of the leading banks in self-funded search. So I went through their process to try to get my deal done in Arkansas. They didn't even do acquisition loans back then. They only lent to physician-led businesses in the state where they're based, which is North Carolina. The only bank, there was only one in the nation that did self-funded search. It was in North Carolina as well. Westtown, but you had to go through a consulting company in Chicago. That was the only consulting company that the bank would listen to around deals. So any of you who understand agency, you should always be speaking to the investor or the lender directly. This whole system was mucked up. That's 2015. Go to 2019, 2020, you start seeing way more people doing it. You start seeing the Cody Sanchez's. Around that time, maybe even 2020, 2021, the Buy Then Build book comes out. Around 2014, 15 is when the ETA class at Harvard started. So that's been in existence for about 5 years at this point. And so you're starting to see little pockets of places where people understand about not just funded search, but self-funded search. But you're getting the addition of social media where honestly, lies travel better than the truth. So now you got not a person who did a half a deal with somebody else, which is likely the truth. No, I did 10 deals and I only work 1 hour a quarter, 0 hours a day on my business. And you start hearing this malarkey and it travels really well, it goes viral, but it's a complete lie and farce. Around 2021 is when Twitter really started taking off. There was a nascent community there, but I think it really started taking off in 2021. That's when you started seeing people amass 100,000 followers who were talking about small business acquisition. The silver tsunami was all the wave. You started seeing conferences about self-funded search and really a real ecosystem. Now Live Oak is doing acquisition loans. First Bank of the Lake is doing them. Byline's coming into play. And so the transition of this business has really happened as I've been sitting in it, working in it. Another reason why I call myself the OG, because most of the people you talk to wouldn't be able to give you that history because they don't go back to 2009. I didn't see them back then.
So Elliott, what makes you so passionate about QoE and helping business owners?
When you grow up poor and you start seeing these fancy places like Georgia Tech, like Harvard Business School, the only way that they show you how to get rich is go working at some big company doing 120 hours a week for 30 years, and then hopefully you get retired before you die. And I've always felt that was bullshit. Why am I so passionate? Self-funded search allows a person like a caterer that I helped buy a auto shop in North Carolina and go from making $50,000 a year to $250,000 in SDE to now almost $1 million in SDE with a loan product that takes 90% of the risk away from you. You can finance it with debt. And you're seeing people, not just the super fancy business school folks, but everyday people getting rich using this mechanism to do it. The issue is it's not easy. The issue is there's a lot of liars in the market. The issue is the self-funded people have to work a full-time job and try to conduct the full search and M&A process at the same time, so they're time constrained. And unlike our private equity friends, these people do personal guarantees, so if they mess up, if they didn't have time to diligence, if they don't get a great QoE provider, if they don't have a good basis on how to get this done from a class that actually gives them the one-on-one time they need, then they never get to that first acquisition, so they never earn $1 million, so they never get the freedom that I think everybody deserves. And so I have a personal vendetta against people doing bad deals, and I've had clients tell me that. And part of why I don't take on more than 6 QoE clients at any given time is because I'm not okay sending a person off into a deal that's likely to send them into bankruptcy. So I need to have enough time to not just look at the numbers, but look at the deal to make sure it's diligence.